So we have two tweets. These are linked. These are named tweets and they are linked together. There are two versions of the same tweet, in fact. And the first one is called Ego Tripping. I do have a new video out. You are not your ego. Check it out on BitChute and YouTube, where I talk about using ego as a tool. It's a very valuable tool, separating your identity from your ego, being able to modulate it, to bring it up, to bring it down. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here, but that video also gives you a little bit of a primer. So, ego tripping. When ego is viewed as a valuation of self-worth, as opposed to a tool for personal and social development, the likelihood of tripping rises exponentially. One key to a balanced or flexible ego is to err on the side of self-esteem by regularly exercising its upper bounds. And the next tweet here, which is connected, is called Virtue Signals from Dead Egos. So, when viewing ego as a tool for personal and social development, as opposed to a valuation of self-worth, steps to mastery include, number 1, finding the boundaries, and number 2, learning when utilizing extremes is appropriate for the benefit of yourself and or others. So let me break this tweet down for you now. Ego tripping. So when we look at ego as a valuation of self-worth, well, and your ego gets damaged, what happens? Your ego can seriously hamper your progress, your development, your success. If you're looking at it as a valuation of self-worth, if you take an ego hit and it knocks you back, it knocks you down, and it makes you feel despondent, it makes you feel like you've lost, like you have just this negative vibe, this negative feeling over it. It can be detrimental, of course. Now, the contrast here is using your ego as a tool. If you use it as a tool for personal and social development, it kind of reduces the likelihood that you'll trip on your ego. If you're able to modulate it, if you're able to make yourself look good when appropriate, or make yourself look bad or weak when appropriate, not only does it help in negotiation and strategy, certainly helped Sun Tzu. You can check out my video, 40 Chess, playing 40 Chess with Sun Tzu. That's on YouTube, talking about that. If you're using your ego as a tool and you're separating it from your identity, you're separating it from morality, you're just kind of using it, leveling it up, leveling it down, it really can help with a variety of social and professional and so on situations. So to get there, to have that balanced or flexible ego, one key is to err on the side of self-esteem by regularly exercising its upper bounds. So I know I'm going to get some comments here talking about how I'm advocating for having a big ego, but I'm really not. I think you should have the capacity, though, for a larger ego. I don't think others should lower their ego down to your level. I think I'd like to encourage, at least, I know this is an imperfect world, I like to encourage at least the people elevate their own ego, that they gain self-esteem within themselves. They feel good about who they are, and they're able to exercise their rights, exercise their power in the social domain. They're able to separate their ego from discussion. They are okay with being right or wrong or whatever it might be. But I think the message is that erring on the side of self-esteem, feeling good about yourself. I mean, you're worth it. We're all worth it. We're all in this together, and we have to fight each other here and there. We have our enemies and we have our friends, but ultimately, we don't want to be fighting ourselves. We don't want to be beating ourselves up. We want to be able to look at ourselves. I know it could be very hard. We have people out there with imposter syndrome, and we have people that have clinical depression. It can be a challenge to look at your ego as a tool and to elevate. But I want to encourage it. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity, a chance, a choice in the matter, where they can view their ego as a tool and modulate it as needed. Just getting into that mindset, getting those muscles warmed up, and so they're not stuck in a world of guilt and shame and depression, feeling minimized, feeling like they don't matter. I don't want to see my friends and family and all the lovely people out there on the internet feeling that. I want to help foster a self-reliant and a self-empowered philosophy for all. So I say you should regularly exercise its upper bounds. Don't be afraid to think big, to talk big, and to get used to, calibrate. Get used to calibrating, to exercising the upper half of the ego. Okay? If you're always making self-deprecating remarks, well, that's a nice exercise. It could be fun to to joke and make self-deprecating jokes. But, at a certain point, I don't want to advocate for negativity. I've called negativity a modern religion on this channel before. And that's a bit hyperbolic, of course. But I do think that getting used to having a large voice, a large presence, and believing in yourself is a big part of the road to success. So I continue here with virtue signals from dead egos. And I say, when viewing ego as a tool for personal and social development as opposed to evaluation of self-worth, steps to mastering your ego, include, number 1, finding the boundaries. So, how low can you go? And how high can you fly? If you never explore the upper bounds of ego and the lower bounds, well, it's undiscovered country. So finding the boundaries, like I say, finding the boundaries of the box, finding the vector of how far you can take it and how far you can pull it back. Getting used to that, being able to calibrate every corner is important. And I do view my tweet videos and my other segments as a form of calibration tool. I'm just trying to be transparent. I'm just trying to calibrate, bring people back to a center. They may have their bias. I certainly have mine. I called this a Trump positive channel. I certainly have my positions, some of which are on the political left and some of which are on the political right. And I have my advocacy and my belief system, my world, my preferences. But I do like to keep my morality separate from my identity, my ego separate from my identity, and it's helped me quite a bit. It actually feels much more, you get more dopamine and serotonin and less cortisol that way when you're able to look at yourself as a complete being that can be on top of the world, or you can be at the bottom. But understanding that there is a spectrum, there is a continuum. And once you're aware that ego is a tool, and you're probably already there at this point in the video, it'll be just another tool in the toolbox that'll help you develop and find success. And I think that's something we should all strive for. So I say number 2, steps to mastery. Number 2, learning when utilizing extremes is appropriate for the benefit of yourself and or others. Sometimes having a big ego is good, and sometimes it's not so good. And once you realize it's not an all or nothing proposition, but that sometimes it's good to have it here, sometimes right here, wherever you want. But as long as we're exercising those muscles, it'll make it easier to reach into the toolbox, pull out ego among all the other factors, all the other tools we have at our disposal, for whatever it might be, rhetorical, philosophical, political. If we're just talking about any situation, if we're just trying to be funny and create humor, being able to laugh at yourself, being able to laugh at or with others. But I have seen quite, one of the impetuses for this is I have seen people that seem to think that everybody should bring their ego down to their level. And I say, well, then, is this a zero-sum game? Like, how are we handling this here? I feel like it's better to err on the side of self-esteem.